It's just to bait people in. Okay.
Yeah, refresh, quick refresh.
I should be working now.
Oh, yeah, fine. Yeah, you're
All
good.
right. I guess this is the real start.
Now I see you.
Oh, you see me? Hey, Vedius. This is for you, Vedius. This. That's a chubby-looking heart, but it's for you. I've always been told that I have fat hands.
Really?
I don't know how to take it.
I've always been told I have long fingers.
Only like we have like the perfect duo. Like if we are ever in fighting people in slap wars, we have like all the weapons. We have the range and.
Yeah, the range and the power. Yeah, okay, nice.
It's like there was this moment that I was a kid where I realized I have like fucking like I get told I have pillow hands, which is nice. I take it as a compliment. Like there was this one time I played football, right, growing up.
Yeah.
And then I was a part of like a massive fucking crash. Like a guy just fucking ran, like stood still, and then I ran my knee into his knee, and whoever comes in with the least force doesn't get the pain. The other guy gets the pain, right? So you like, in some shape or form, parried my knee, right? And then my knee was completely fucked, and I was like laying on the ground in pain. And everyone thought that my hand was fucked. So everyone just came over, look at his hand, what the fuck? And I'm like, what? I'm like, they're 12 years old, you know, they're like, what's wrong with my hands? They're like, look, it's so swollen. His other hand too. I'm like, no, it's my knee, man. It was a rough
That
one.
reminds me of one of my favorite stories from school. Did you ever play, so in the UK we have a game called Rounders.
Rounders, okay? Just
Basically, it's basically baseball.
Okay.
But I don't know why we called it Rounders, but maybe it has different rules. I don't know. But the goal is there are 4 posts. The batter stands on one post. The what are they called? They're not the baller. That's not the guy that throws the ball. What's the pitcher?
Pitcher, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the pitcher. Okay, so we have a pitcher, and then they throw the ball, and then basically you knock it away, and you have to run around.
Yeah.
And if you run around the 4 things, you get out. So in PE once, there was my mate, my best mate in school. He didn't hit his growth spurt until he was like 16.
Okay.
So he was like the shortest kid in the whole year, even when we were all like 15, 16 years old. So all these kids are going through puberty, and he's still just tiny, right?
Okay. He's scaling.
The thing, that's the thing. The thing that people didn't realize was that he had an older brother, right? And his dad made him. Basically, his philosophy was, if you want to understand something, you have to learn it yourself. So like my mate could rebuild his dad's car at the age of 14.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he was a really smart kid.
Okay.
But because he had a brother, he used to get into fights with his brother all the time, right? So he was also like, he was a smart, tough, short kid. And I loved him. As a fun fact, he has a PhD in nanoscience and physics now.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But in this game of Rounders, you know, like in every school, you have those like, in the UK we call them yobbos, you know, just the absolute, they're just the assholes, you know, the one that no one wants to be friends with, but they're just a group of assholes that just pick on everyone. And
yeah. I've had friends like this. Eddie and Freddie are exactly those guys. Still my friends today. Like they were just bored. They would do like the most random shit. But I know exactly what you mean. The yobbos.
Of just yobbos, absolute assholes. And one of them was on the on the second thing, the post, right? And so my mate was on the ball. He hits it and he's about to run, and one of those assholes thinks he's going to be clever. Bear in mind, he has hit his growth spurt. He's already like 5'11". He's a big guy, right? Pretty chubby, right?
Yeah.
He's like twice the size of my mate. And then he's like, I'm going to be clever and I'm going to try and knock down my mate, right?
Okay.
And so my mate quickly realizes what's happening after he runs past the first thing. So without hesitation, he sprints, like, and I shit you not, without like full force, full sprint into this guy that's twice his size. And everyone's expecting him to just bounce off him. But he, not only does he floor him, right? He like rams into him. The big guy goes fucking down. He then slows to a light jog, and he's running past him with both his middle fingers in the air. Oh, it was one of my favorite memories.
Holy shit. And then he got beaten up for the rest of the year.
Oh no, no one fucked with him. No,
he would just run you down?
Yeah, you don't fuck with him. My mate Ross, you would never fuck with him. He was a very smart boy, and he was a very tough guy.
Holy. Rebuilding cars and shit at 14. Can imagine him like a baby, you know, he's like crying that he's hungry, and his dad is like, yo, cook your own fucking meal. And he's like, just fucking throwing a pan at him. Oh, fuck's sake, man. Fucking baby. Yeah, the cyanide. Someone wrote cyanide. This is jiu-jitsu cyanide.
Yeah, it was that exactly. Yeah. That's
Oh
great
shit.
comparison. Yeah.
Are you like still in touch with people that you knew growing up, or did you feel like you made like a big sacrifice, like going into esports?
In university, I don't speak to any of them. The ones I met at university, I don't speak to at all, which is a shame because a lot of people in university like saved me because I had no will to do any work in my degree.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't have gotten the grade that I did. But it's cool because my mum still lives in Southwest Wales. Whenever we go home, I haven't seen them in ages, obviously, but whenever I get the chance to go home, normally I just give a lot of them a ring, and they're relatively close, so it's pretty easy to.
Just trying to get married to everybody. You just call them up.
But yeah, and it's that easy. My mate, because the thing is, my mate Ross, he after he graduated, he wanted to take a break because he'd been in education he did like 4 years university, 3 years PhD. So he's been in school since however long, and he was like, I need to be done. So if I went home now, I could probably find him pretty easily.
That's cool.
A lot of my other mates went to like Cardiff or Bristol or like fairly close in the UK, and the UK is relatively small anyway, so it's not.
Yeah. Unless you drive up to Telford, that's in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah,
that fucking place.
Yeah. Why would you go to Telford?
I was there once for I-45.
Oh.
Fucking insomnia.
Yeah.
It was fucking horrible.
I used to drive my my mate down to Coventry. I-49 was the first one I went to. Yeah.
Okay, I-49. You played, no? You were playing?
Yeah, I played. At my first tournament with my mates, we were just competing for fun. I played against Power of Evil.
Holy shit.
Yeah, my claim to fame was I was the jungler, because this was back in season 3. I was back then Challenger only had like 200 people in it, so Diamond 1 had like +4 -4.
Okay.
And back then I was Diamond 1 84 LP in as a jungler, so I was pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you. These are times that you look fondly upon.
Yeah, very fondly. Yeah, back when I was actually really good at the game.
Yeah.
And Power of Evil. So what happened was one of the big UK orgs, FM Esports.
Okay.
They lent their jungler to the Unicorns of Love because Kikis, do you remember when he used to play for them?
Yeah.
He couldn't play for whatever reason. So
okay.
They borrowed FM's jungler. So in return for Insomnia, they let Power of Evil play for FM Esports. So Power of Evil came over to the UK, and he competed in this tournament.
That's so fucking shady, man.
Yeah.
Imagine that you pull that shit nowadays, you know? It's like, oh, so we're gonna borrow caps here, and then we're gonna give you back, like, let's say Zivu, and you can have him in CS:GO, and then we're gonna just that tournament you want to play that tournament? Oh, okay, let's just use them as fucking bodies that you just move around.
Yeah.
Fucking esports was the Wild West back then,
that
man.
Game, 2 hilarious things happened. So the first thing was I had a cheese strat on Lee Sin, which was that you do pardon me, I can't remember exactly what you do, but in the past it used to be buff to buff. So you wouldn't do camps, you would do like
buff to buff, and you were level 3 already.
Yeah, something like that. So you would do buff to buff. So what I would do is I would do blue, and then I would go into the brush behind the enemy red buff, and then I would sit and wait, and then because they didn't have smite, I would steal their red, and then I would kill them. And so I did this like all the fucking time, and I did this against their jungler who was caught off guard, so I killed him. And then Power of Evil, being the laner that he is, rotated down to try and help collapse. And so I flash over the wall after killing his jungler and stealing his red into the dragon pit, which spawned at 2 minutes back then. And then he flashed after me. So what I did was I aggroed the dragon. I slowed him with my cripple on Lee Sin, and then I ward hopped out, and the dragon killed him for me.
Holy shit.
And then afterwards, he added me. We lost that game. But afterwards, he added me and he said, "Did you do that on purpose?" And then I said, "Yeah, I didn't think I could kill you because my Q was on cooldown. So I used the dragon instead." And he was like, "GG, well played." And then he stayed on my friends list for like the next 4 years or something before he either removed me or he got a new account. But yeah.
You have a replay of this? Is there a VOD?
Game, I tried finding it, but no.
Shit,
the
man.
Insomnia VODs. That game wasn't even streamed, so you'd.
Oh, that's a BG.
But the other one was my mate. He played AP Tristana into Power of Evil, and he solo killed him twice.
Shit.
And he kept typing in all chat like, "Why is this a thing?" Do you remember AP Trist with the burn on the E?
Yeah. No, of course. And then there was like this thing where you could do with the W, where you could like, you made the minions low, then you W'd on the minion, and it would trigger like your E like multiple times at the same time, and you would one-shot people like level 2 already.
Yep.
It was
and
good cheese.
Your alt had AP scaling too.
Yes. Stupid. It still does actually, but yeah.
But yeah, that, and he solo killed him twice, and he said that like that was one of his greatest achievements. Knowing where Power of Evil is today, the fact that he solo killed him twice on AP Tristana mid.
Totally. Where he is today, at gunpoint, Bjergsen, returning as a player. Holy shit. What do you think of that, Bjergsen returning?
What caught my interest was when he said, or that article said that he's looking at EU prospects. Imagine Bjergsen comes back to Europe.
I think that's the career move. I don't think this guy needs money, no?
I mean,
I think Bjergsen needs to compete and come back home.
I mean, I don't know what money is like in Europe. Like, I do not know what the salaries are like. I have like a rough estimation, but I wonder if anyone could even give him an offer that he'd be okay with. Because relative to TSM, I'd be surprised if an organization in Europe could match that. I have no idea.
Well, I know that it's very top heavy, right? It's like very, very top heavy. And if you're one of the top guys, then you can make similar money here that you can make in North America. But you need to be like at the top end, for sure. Like maybe not like the super, super top end, like in North America, but you can get there, you know?
But it's quite similar in America. Is that what my understanding?
Yeah, for sure.
Like top heavy. Not everyone in NA is making ridiculous salaries, right?
Yes. But it's also in North America, like the landscape is so different due to like the import system and like having residency and all of that jazz. Like that just moves values around. While in Europe, it's a lot more pure in terms of just performance.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat. And at the same time, like the ERLs are so heavily involved that like in some cases you're better off having a career in some of the ERL teams than being at the bottom LEC team, honestly.
Yeah.
Like being in K Corp, like for example Cabo, for sure this guy deserves to be in LEC. Like I think everyone knew it, everyone knows it, and this guy dumped on everyone that he played against in the Challenger series. He just had got to chill a bit. But I think in terms of career, it's better for him to just smash people with K Corp, be in such an organization, than to oink in some bottom LEC team.
He's French too, right?
Yeah. And he really likes Chupa Chups, so it goes hand in hand. Off-season rumours. Is there anything that stands out to you as the most exciting? Do you like the drama?
I mean, no. Mainly because I actually know. I mean, I know a lot of the pros. I was really stressed for you in the off season last year.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, like on a personal level, players are treated as like products, right?
Yeah.
They're pieces on a board, and you're trying to build a roster that can compete. And I get it, why like it has to happen, and why you have to look at that. But then when you look at the people behind it and some of the decisions that are made, like it just sucks a lot for a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I've never been a part of that process, so I can't say for sure exactly like all the intricacies of it. But I've known a lot of the G2 players for years, because Mickey came in actually the same split I did, 2016 Splice. He joined the same split that I did. So I've cast Mickey his whole European LEC career. So to see him not be on G2 is sad for me, just because I think he's still such an amazing player, and
he is
had
for sure.
bad splits. I mean, remember that like his hand was crippled before he won MSI. People were like really critical of him in the spring of 2019, and then he went and he had an insane tournament with Perks. And then even in summer, I think that he played super well, and I think that it's very natural, especially for tenured pros, to have like up and down splits.
For sure.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a player like Wonder came back next split and was immediately like one of the top laners again, right?
100%. No, it's like the community perception is so short term. Like it's really, but that's the thing. It's like often we want to view the community as one, but it's living and changing by the minute, right? Because the people that comment and the people that, like, it's not like I'm paying attention to the names, but it's always different people, and it's often people are gravitating towards negativity because it's such a natural thing to like gravitate towards. It's like how crazy how social media, also the algorithms have figured out that people interact with negativity the most, right? And it's the same for Reddit, right? Like the comments that get upvoted are always like, oh, this guy is fucking trash, and it's like, okay, so short-term based. But in my mind, I feel like all of the G2 players, they've, you know, if they're in for next year too, like it doesn't matter. Like these guys have so much credit in their pocket for what they've done over the last years that it just shouldn't matter. And from being like experienced in teams as well, like, you know, with the shifts that occur and the dynamics that change, you know, I think the difference between a player performing super well and a lot worse, there can be like small differences, like really small differences. You know, it's the same.
I should also
with teams,
quickly
right?
clarify.
We don't know anything. We don't know anything.
When Yamato asked me about the rumors, the one that I immediately went to was the G2 ones, right? Because there was the rumors of Mickey and Wonder's buyout, and then Grabs's as well.
Yes.
So that's just what I'm commenting on, and I don't want people to sit there and think like, Vedius confirms G2 removes Mickey. I don't.
Yeah, of course. That's why I also specifically said rumors, right?
Yeah.
It's also like,
because like I've all rumors of like, you know, Fnatic Bjergsen too, you know, and it's like there's nothing to confirm that. You know what I mean? It's all just I'm kidding.
yes. No, it's like, no, I agree with you. Like the G2 players, like sometimes a certain dynamic just doesn't work out. Like I think the whole roster, like individually, they for sure have the potential to be the best in their position. I wouldn't take that away from them. And I think any GM that is taking their opinions from Reddit, you know, will not have any success anyway. So good luck to them. No, for sure.
I mean, your roster is the craziest ones to me, but I'm like, so this is an interesting one. I don't even know if you can comment on this because like you're their coach, right? But
we'll see.
But one of the things that has been coming up actually a lot recently is like the quality of Europe right now, right? Which is because like you can look at the Fnatic roster in two aspects, which is one of them is like, well, Fnatic succeeded because a lot of the teams around them crumbled, right? You could make the argument that, well, a roster like this was able to find success because a team like Rogue didn't perform at the level that they should have. A team like Misfits didn't perform at the level that they should have. A team like G2 didn't perform at the level that they should have, which then made it easier for a team like Fnatic to overcome them. Or the alternative perspective is this roster got good enough that they earned that spot fair and square. And like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle between the two, right? Because you can never really like, if you talk to any team and they lose, they're always going to sit there and tell you we didn't perform at our best. And I'm sure that even now you can sit there and say like, there's a world where we could have beaten Mad Lions if we just played a little better, right? So it's one of those things where it's probably some gray area, but I am curious as to your thoughts about it, because like, or if that's something you can really talk about, you know, if you
mean like the power level of Europe in general, you mean?
Yeah. Like what you think about Fnatic in your roster, I guess.
Well, I feel like generally Europe, I think it's been good. I feel like always as the teams that are successful rise from the ashes of everybody else burning, right? That's always going to be the case. Unless it's so damn clear that the team is so much better than everybody else that they just steal away all the attention. Like
Right.
that's the case for G2. That's the case like when G2 was in their prime, like 2019 G2 or 2018 Fnatic. They were so much better than everybody else that it just you couldn't really, no one really cared if the other teams were burning or not, because
Yeah.
it was so clear that they were better. Now, in the context of what's going on, you know, like I look back at the previous years when I qualified. For example, when 2016 with Splice, that was also you know rough years for
Was
a
rough,
couple
yeah.
of the other teams. You know, with the G2, like Fnatic had the rebuild after losing Huni and Rain Override, so they also had a rough year. 2018 can also be argued. Like with Fnatic, it was their right, and then it was us, and then finally G2. And G2 was also going through troubled times. Like they were like griefing the
Oh, I
whole summer split, right? And they had to go through the
remember
gauntlet.
you played the third place match against Misfits, and everyone
Yeah,
thought Misfits would win too, right? Because that was
yeah,
the
yeah.
Max Law. Was that Max Law Alfari roster with
Yes,
Hans too?
yes.
Yeah.
Hansama, and then I think Senkux was
Harry.
mid. I think
I think
Senkux
you're
was mid
right. I
already.
think
Yeah.
it was Senkox. Yeah, I think you're right.
So it's like there's always that question, you know. It's like when other teams succeed, people are going to look at the other end too, and the other end almost always looks bad.
Yeah.
Like it's just our perception. When someone loses, they look bad. And in the context of what Misfits accomplished, right? That on paper, I think they had a pretty damn good split in terms of
Oh,
you
yeah.
know their expectations. G2, of course, they crashed and burned in terms of expectations. You know, I remember, you know, after we beat them, I was reading the comments of you know what everyone was writing back when you know Reckless signed with G2, and everyone said Fnatic is doomed. I remember Wundu was tweeting too, like, "Yo, this is gonna be so fucking free," you know.
Yeah.
And it, like, of course, the sentiment, it made sense at the time, but it was just it's funny how sometimes things play out. It's like there's so little details that can be the difference makers, and I feel like you know I look at what we accomplished. The best thing, you know, it's always easy to say after the fact when the journey has been kind of complete. You know, what we went through, like the teams that we had to go through, and what we needed to learn, was the best thing that happened to us, because we got so much better over the span of the playoffs, and that's also contextual with, you know, your opposition throughout the split. Everyone's scrimming with each other, so on some level we are all sharing the same experience. So when we scrim
Right.
Mad Lions scrims G2, and if for some reason, you know, G2 was better, then hand in hand we would have also gotten better, because it kind of, you know, is connected somehow. And in my mind, when I think of the underperformance of a different team in the context of our team, is just something that you can't really account for, because at the end of the day, you face adversity for what it is, right? We are preparing
Okay.
against this G2. This is the G2 we're preparing against. This is what we are practicing against. This is what we're fighting against. And I think that is where my thinking in terms of the power level of any region kind of stops, because to say that EU is weaker or not is very, very hard to say, because I remember 2018, the sentiment was Fnatic was great, and then Vitality, G2, whatever, you know. We did fine, 3-3, we lost to C9, which is, you know, to this day really pisses
To
me
this
off.
day. Yeah,
Like
I know.
I'm writing to Reapert, right, and he's booking Scrims one of the thieves, and just reading Reapert pisses me off. Obviously, I'm very polite. He's a great guy. He's a great success with one of the thieves. But it's like it boils my blood. You know, it really boils my blood. And then G2 had their amazing story of beating RNG and Perks completely popping off, and Wunder and
Yeah.
Jankos, and of course Yanan and what did like that. Like it's so hard to
Fabled
judge.
Heimerdinger ban.
Yeah, because there's so many variables at play that makes it hard to predict, because a lot can change even in a minute. You know, as
You know,
crazy
bro,
as,
so
yeah.
with that in mind, it's just I know you and I have had this moment before, so I know it exists. But sometimes you watch a team and you genuinely think this team is really fucking good.
Yes.
Right? And I will never forget after the 2019 Spring Finals, G2 Origin, you came into the back room and we looked at each other, and then you looked at me and you said, you know, I think this team can win MSI. And then the first thing I said back to you was, I was thinking the exact same thing. But I had that with 2018 Fnatic. I made the tweet. I tweeted out that I think Fnatic can make finals this year. I legitimately thought so. And sometimes you can just see a team and you're like, I can see the potential in this roster. And sometimes it's really hard to explain to people, because a lot of the times it comes down to because my opinion is, and we're kind of moving away from the previous topic, so I hope that's okay. But my opinion is that when you get to a certain level of professional play, mechanics become significantly less of a factor, because the reality is that if everyone can play their champions perfectly, then there's almost a predetermined outcome depending on the draft. Now, that's always not exclusively true, because there are a significant number of variables in League, and obviously a lot of things can change depending on what happens in the game. But mechanics, the impact of an individual starts to fall off the higher you go in terms of pro, and it becomes more about the decisions that you make when you make them, and then how reliably you can execute upon them. And certain teams throughout history, I've just seen those decisions and I've thought to myself, they always make the right decision, like always. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous and insane, the fact that they can so consistently make that correct decision. But those teams so rarely come around.
Yes.
It's those really special teams.
I felt this way, like if I think about my past, I've felt this way about SKT back in 2015. I remember thinking this about IG when we scrimmed them. I was like, these guys are gonna be trouble for Fnatic, because they were in the group. Screaming IG. I remember KT 2018 was also, I got that feeling. 2019 G2, 2018 Fnatic. Like playing against those teams, there was this sense of it is inevitable what they will try to achieve in the game. There's this element of, even if something goes wrong, that the team is in the state of mind that it doesn't matter, and they will figure it out anyway. Because something that all of these teams have in common is that the game is never really over, right?
Yes.
I lost games against G2 when we were 10k goal behind. I lost games against IG, we were 10k goal ahead. I lost games against KT when we were 10k goal ahead. I lost games against Fnatic when we were 10k goal ahead. It was just, the game is constantly played until it's completely fucking over. And I think that is something that a lot of teams lack,
Yeah.
And I think it requires a very specific player. Think, for example, Hilly-san. He's that type of player. He's going to see opportunities where no one else sees them. He's going to create opportunities when they don't exist. Meaning, like, he could be the type of person to have so much foresight where he thinks, I can only die here if they commit flashes. I'm going to look for them to do that in order for them to burn something to create an opportunity for later. Like a good death, And that's just like a very simple example of it, but his perception of the game is very, very deep, And that is rare, very rare. And if I think of the context of what Europe is, I think Mad Lions is pushing towards that, but I worry that maybe they are not as exciting individually as some of the previous teams. Like, for example, 2019 G2, 2018 Fnatic. So I think it's easy to not put them on that same tier. But they have that element of, the game is never over with them, right?
Yeah.
They really, even if something they fuck up, they end something, they are still, you know, thinking about the next layer of the game, and that's a tough thing to teach. Because I think scrim culture wise and so forth, it's like when you're in a losing position, the game is lost, right? But
Yes.
it never really is, because no one really ever plays a perfect game, and
Yes.
I think that is like a topic that I think everyone should be looking to, you know, explore more. And in the context of us, you know, heading into this tournament, I'm very happy. Like I'm very happy with our level. I'm very happy with the potential we have on the roster. I think I have fantastic players that definitely, you know, can compete with the best, and it just will come down to how we use our practice. You know, I can tell you now that when we played, but before we played the finals against Mad Lions, like we annihilated them every single scrim that we played. And
Yeah.
I'm sharing that because scrims at the end, the result just doesn't matter. It's just about what you take away from them, and you know what you bring on the day. And I can say for certain that, you know, the day we didn't have a good day performance wise. You know, it was a tough task to go through all of the best of fights that we did. So we had a lot of footage. Like Mad Lions got to see 18 of our games. They got to see our scrim games too, and like we got to see those scrim games too. But from their positions, you know, their position obviously is more privileged because of you know, the way the bracket works. And
Yeah.
I walked away feeling, you know, we could have done so much more. And I hope that we face them again at the World Championship, because I think that we can be better than them. But that comes from the coach of the team. So I'm going to say everything in a
And I
biased
was
light
going to
because
say, this all comes back to what I was saying to earlier as well, which is
Yes,
like
yes.
whenever you ask anyone, they're always going to sit there and tell you like, oh yeah, sure, of course, Fnatic is good, but I, as the road coach, believe that our guys just didn't play as well as they could have, you know, and like, of course, if we'd just played better, we would have won, you know,
Yes, yes. No, of
and
course.
like, and it's always going to be that case, and that's just kind of what I would expect from you, Yamato. There's no reason not to expect that. You know?
No, of course.
But do you set goals, or are your players, do they have goals, or do you sit there and just be like, hey, let's just find out who we're playing first? Do you know who you're playing first yet? Did they announce the schedule today?
I don't know if the schedule is announced. I've been so busy preparing for my flight for tomorrow. Like this has been the only off day I've had in a very long time. So
Okay.
anything that has been happening in the league world is not necessarily something I am aware of right now. But
Okay. You want to know who you're playing first?
I'll figure it out later. We can talk about it later. I'll let you do predictions
Okay.
or whatever you want to do. Because
Okay.
of course, obviously, I can't say. I can't say anything. You know, need
Of
to make
course.
sure that I protect myself and to not make any conflicts of interest. I love people.
sure.
You know, people writing us. Can you make tier lists? Can you tell me what champions are being played? Can you tell me about scrims? I was like, yeah, the paparazzi,
Someone,
Twitter
someone
paparazzi.
someone in Cadrel's chat said, hey, can you spectate the Cloud9 scrims?
It's very very cute, actually.
Yeah.
It's very cute.
Okay, so what should I talk? We talked a lot. We kind of went on a weird path there. I
I
hope it
don't know
was
where we
coherent.
went. Who cares? No, Mad
Okay.
Lions is interesting. I think
So my oh yeah, so let's talk about that, because that was humanoid to me is special,
he is.
and I don't know why. I don't have a very valid reason as to why. It's just when I watched him all split long, I was sitting there thinking, this boy is very, very, very good at the game. And I think that he is one of the most talented players in Europe. And what like really impressed me, maybe impressed isn't the right word, but Nisqy on PGL seemed to have a huge amount of respect for humanoid. And he was talking about how he was like watching his pro views, and he was like trying to take things from him, and he was
Yeah.
learning, and it was actually very cool to hear Nisqy say that he has a lot of respect for humanoid, because I feel like you just don't hear that from pro players very often these days, you know, like you don't very often hear like, I really look up to this. I'm not saying that Nisqy's like he's his idol, right? But especially in a domestic sense, normally you hear like, oh, like I'll watch Faker's VODs or I watch Showmaker's VODs. So to hear a player like Nisqy who's very good in his own right, looking to learn things from his peers in his own region was so cool to hear. So Yeah, I think Humanoid is really good, and I think that he's a large part of what makes this roster really special. And I think that if you want to do any group discussion, in my opinion, this should be a very straightforward group for Mad. I would
Yeah,
be surprised if they do not get out of this group.
no, for sure. We will get to the world stock eventually. This is, like Mad Lions, there's always, when you get to practice against Asian teams, you go to those tournaments, you realize, like the first days, you realize what you're missing. When you realize what you're missing, it becomes like you get faced with the task of just getting fisted for a little bit, and then you have to add what you're missing because it becomes so blatantly obvious. It's tough sometimes. For example, these last scrim days, like our opposition hasn't been like super great, so it's been tougher to practice what we need to practice because we get away with a lot more.
Right.
And sometimes, when you're staring down the barrel of a gun over and over, you eventually realize, how to deal with it, and it becomes a lot easier when you're faced with that situation.
You've been scrimming EU and NA teams, I imagine?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's okay, right? Like, I don't want to talk bad about the EU or NA teams at all. And, when it came to us, it was the same thing, right? When we faced Mad Lions 2 times in the regular split in summer, it was good evidence of what we're lacking, So Mad Lions was definitely like a team. They had what we lacked, and it was something we lacked in spring, because in spring our approach was very wrong. Like everyone had just the wrong expectations coming into spring, and this is something that we learned from a lot. And then into summer, in terms of what we needed to work on was like our how we are linked in the game, how we are connected to each other in the game, and this is something that Mad Lions are very good at. They are very selfless as players. I think what Humanoid does well is he has a good grasp of how, like, the windows of when he can get pressured and the windows where he can make himself as big as possible, in the sense of making multiple players on the map feel his presence. Basically, I think for the average player, they have a very linear way of seeing the game. For example, I am on mid-wave. I have 6 creeps against 6 creeps. Sometimes you could give those 6 creeps in order to deny topside two waves, right? And that's a very, very good price to pay when you say it like that. It's the same thing for a support, right? If Kaiser is not showing on the map, bottom lane is paying a price of maybe 6 minions because Kazi can't walk up, but all of a sudden mid lane and top lane have to think twice because the support might be there, right?
Yep.
And I think this is something that Mad Lions do very well. They're very fluid in terms of knowing where they need to pressure together, where they need to link together, and I think this is where they find a lot of opportunities. And this is, I think, where Rogue are weaker, right? Rogue are not so good at this. They're good at playing the game of 6 minions versus 6 minions and squeezing value out of that moment.
Yeah, I agree.
And chasing jungle camps and very individual play. But then when it comes into mid-game, it's all about, finding those opportunities and making yourself as big as humanly possible in terms of using Fog of War. Because something that you will notice right away when you watch Rogue is that, like, the super and jungle are showing way too much. They make themselves so small. It's like the moment you go into Fog of War, you make yourself so big. Like the moment you enter Fog of War, it's like a circle on the minimap that is just expanding in the context of your move speed. And this is something I think that Mad Lions does very well. And I think Humanoid does well, because we took, we looked at that, and obviously good teams are teams that you should study and learn from. And what Nisqy said was true. We looked at their games, and there was a lot of good things to take away. I think Kaiser and Humanoid are the key players of that team.
So that reminds me of Caps, only because he is a player reminded me of someone that almost didn't seem afraid of fog. And maybe you can correct me on this, but my impression of Caps is always like, okay, yeah, they actually, it's a thing that Kadril says a lot, which is fake pressure. So sometimes what you'll do is you'll move and you'll sit in your tri-brush to create the sense of fake pressure. So as you rightly said, the moment that someone goes missing on the map, the expectation is that you show respect to that person, because that person could be coming mid or they could be staying bot. If you as Thresh just walk into your tri-bush and you just sit there because I don't know, you're just creating the sense of fake pressure. You can get the enemy mid laner to do something simply because you're not visible on the map. And sometimes I would feel that Caps was the type of player that would like assume half the time it was fake pressure. And then he would kind of rely on his own ability to like, oh, I was wrong. And then he would try and play on the edge to get out of that situation. I don't know if you would agree with that though, or if...
No, I remember like when Caps came to the scene back in 2017, he was a wildcat. And I remember I was flamed because I said that, like I said in an interview, that Caps is the most mechanically gifted mid laner that we have. And I got a lot of shit for that. But to me, it was very evident right away in terms of how he practices and also how he played. And 2017 wasn't like a fantastic year, but this was like the time where like Caps did the kill on Perks with the Rise. There was like, you know, he was Rise and Perks was playing Syndra, and there was like a lot of moments like that that were just, you know, brilliancies in terms of mechanical play. And that's what he was, right? He was kind of like very, very similar to Jizuke's start in 2018. You know, Jizuke was like, you know, the things he did mechanically were absolutely nuts because this was his main focus. This is how he viewed the game. Mid versus mid, he needs to annihilate. You know, that's how he wins games, and that's how he's going to approach the game. And I think this was like the beginning of Caps' career, and also Jizuke was very similar in the beginning. And also Perks in the beginning, like he had the privilege of playing with Trick, who was an absolute fucking god in the jungle at the time. Like we were so blessed in Europe that both Trick and Spirit came to Europe because I think they saved the level of jungle we had. You know, I think if that didn't happen, the stonks for junglers in Europe, maybe it would have been different today, you know, just because of the trajectory of everything. Because Trick and Spirit were so much fucking better than everybody. And then when you're faced with that problem, right, how do I beat this guy? You become so much better, right? And Trick was super, super good, but Perks was the same way. He was fucking solo killing everyone. I remember the game against Ica when he played Arya against Ica Rise, and he just fucking demolished him, like annihilated him, put him like 6 feet deep, you know, just his head was sticking out of the sand and he just kept slapping it, you know, and he couldn't do anything. Like it was crazy. And Caps, eventually, you know, you evolve, and then you realize, you know, that there is so many things that are far more important than just annihilating the enemy mid laner. And I think that progression was very, very obvious when he transitioned into like the G2 times, where they ran into Damwon and they beat Damwon very easily because Caps was dominating the whole map. He was pushing, dominating the whole map, and Showmaker at the time was just really, really good at laning, but in terms of the impact on the map was not there. And that's like the evolution of how you win games. Eventually you get to the point where team play is key. And
those were his back-to-back Kale games, weren't they?
Yes. I think there was a Kale top, I think, and then he played like, I don't know, he was playing Yasuo, and then there was like an Irelia top, like Wunder was playing Rise against Irelia, and then like Yasuo roamed top like 18 times, and then he played Syndra into LeBlanc, and you know, he just completely like dominated the map. He found ways to beat the enemy team instead of just beating the enemy mid laner, and that's always like the progression. And I think that's always the conversation between, like when people say Chovy is the best mid laner, I think it makes sense when it comes to the context of just beating the enemy mid laner, but beating the enemy team, that's something that I believe maybe Doinby is better at, right? Like Doinby is much better at beating the whole team, right? And Showmaker too, right?
When you look at Showmaker's performance at MSI, I think that he and Canyon were kind of dragging that team through that tournament, you know?
Yeah. No, for sure. 100%. And I think that's like just the evolution of many players. And I think Humanoid was that too in the beginning. He was like a brawler that sometimes just straight up griefed it, right? He died like 10 times. Like
his mini map wasn't on. He
was going on side lane, just sprinting it with his corki, and now he has began to understand how to beat the enemy team and how to make your team winning, which is, you know, there's this concept, like people think you push and then you have Prio, but there's so many ways to make Prio. You could base lose a wave, base first, the other guy bases because he pushed a wave, you're first on the map on the next wave, you paid 6 minions, and then you have Prio. You could die, and the enemy, just because your respawn timer is shorter than the enemy recall timer, you could have Prio on the next wave when you die. You could get Prio with TP. You could get Prio by just not contesting the wave and being in fog. There's so many different ways of being there at the right time, and I think this is where the better mid laners begin to show up, because some of the lower level mid laners, they just see it very linearly. It's like,
Yeah.
I push, I have Prio, and that's it. I'm getting pushed, the enemy has Prio. But if you watch the context of the map, maybe you can pay those 6 minions and be first anyway. Because
Someone said in your chat the Hilly special.
yes, I remember this conversation I had with Hilly. It just the sentence. I can't share the context, but he just said, "When I'm dead, I am unleashed."
Yeah.
It's a blessing. It's truly a blessing.
No, that specifically reminds me of a situation. So there was I think it was in the finals. So maybe you've even VOD reviewed this. It was either in the finals or it was a prior Mad Lions game, but maybe it was against Rogue. But the point is that what happened was a play happened in bot lane, right? A play happened. Armut, I think, had just died, or he'd come back to lane for whatever reason, and the wave was slow pushing towards Odoamne, right? So Odoamne had TP'd bot due to this play. He'd gone back to base and he was making his way up top, but this wave was stacking top. And because of this gank that just happened bot, I remember specifically the key points are Elyoya is bot lane because he was involved in the play. And Armut was top lane and he was building up this slow pushing wave. And so rather than base and spend his money, Elyoya said, well, what I can do is I can clear my Gromp, I can clear my Wolves, and then if I just leg it to top, I'll actually arrive at top lane at the same time as the wave crash. And then we can dive Odo. And so Humanoid, who had either died or had gone base for whatever reason, he comes back into mid. He pushes out one wave, and then he and Elyoya, at perfect timing, dive Odo top with a stacked wave after a gank bot had only happened like a minute ago. And that, to me, was a really great example of like identifying the map and recognizing, okay, how do I adjust what I need to do to make a play? And FPX did a very similar thing in their semifinal match or something. I forget who they were playing against too, but FPX did a very similar thing. And that, to me, that ability to like read the map state in a moment and then come up with a creative solution, like, okay, well, I'm sitting on like 1,200 gold. I want to go to base. However, the ability to make this play happen in like a minute's time, I can see it. That's actually better for me to just go straight for that play rather than base, spend my money, because that play is going to impact the map so much more than just doing my thing. And to me, that kind of like ties into what you were saying in terms of not playing the game linearly, not just following the traditional rules.
Yes.
Because it's this idea that like NA is an interesting one in this, because one of those things that like always gets brought up, like NA's macro is really bad, and I'm like, but I know a bunch of players that have gone to NA to have a really good understanding of macro. Like Mithy is a really easy example of one. But also there's a bunch of talented individuals that also know macro. And like I also know a lot of the support staff that go to NA that also have really good macro. So how is it that you can have all these talented individuals that all understand how like the map movements work and how the game is played, and how is it that they can the players all seem to understand how to move on the map, yet when you watch they seem to just not have the same level of macro as other top teams in other regions. And a part of me thinks it is this sense that you need that team, that level of team, like an FPX or like an old G2, that don't play in the linear sense, that don't play like textbook true macro. They find creative ways in the moment by just reading the map state and just adapting, and then creating new situations in order to get the advantages that they need. Because then that trickles down and it comes back to what you were saying, right? Like having the blessing of losing to Trick and Spirit, having the ability to actually play against teams like G2 2019, Fnatic 2018, get defeated, recognize where you're failing, and then lose. I've always wondered if that was why NA always struggled. because they've never necessarily had that team that they've been able to like get obliterated by to then kind of like learn how to like bend the rules in situations. But I don't even know if you agree with that concept or.
Well, I think that there's always, a team in a region. Like the best team in the region shapes the rest of the region.
Right.
It was the same, right, when you look at North America. TSM was first place in the regular split, right? But everyone started playing similar to how they did it, where they basically had the three musketeers around mid lane, super jungle mid, just heavily around mid lane, walk as three, and just let your AD carry play in isolation, which was very strange because I saw so many AD carries just catching waves 1v2. I remember specifically like EG versus C9 where like Sven was just catching the wave 1v2, and in my world, in my Fnatic world, that guy dies.
Dead.
That guy dies. There's a
Yeah.
show of force, and I think it's always that challenge of there's always a chase, right? It's like this is the best team right now. How do we beat them? And then after
Right.
they've been defeated, they're going to look at things and assess. And there's always also natural improvement because of the intelligence of the players and the experience of the players. There's 100% that. Sometimes, of course, you can have improvement without having opposition. I'm not saying that you can't, but it
Right.
becomes a lot easier when you are facing, very, very rough teams. But it was very evident that people took it, like the North American teams, when TSM was first in regular split, the teams were taking inspiration from TSM. The same way here in Europe, the teams, like us being second place, we did in fact take inspiration from Mad Lions because they beat us, right?
Yes.
And whether it's inspiration from them or inspiration from the games that we played, it was us against them in that moment, and the product that is, we looked at how to solve it. And that's, the additional layer that we added to our game. You can look at things abroad and you can take ideas, and there's many, many ways to improve. But having challenges definitely is one of the easier ways. And I think, the tricky thing about North America is just the schedule. Like, I would not want to be in that, just play 3 games a week, best of ones. I think that's horrible. The solo queue thing, it seems to be a problem that is maybe beyond saving, because the credibility of the solo queue has just, credibility is so important, because the credibility of the Korean ladder is you just queue up and you feel a type of way already, right? It's the feeling is completely different. Like when I was over in Korea, I was master promo, and here I'm slumming it, I'm slumming it, which is Korea service obviously a lot harder, but the state of mind is just, important.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, the best teams that North America has always sent, like if you look at the teams that are winning, to win North America is so different to being good at the World Championship. It's just, the idea is just so different. And the players that are consistently winning in North America, of course, maybe not in recent times, but for the longest time, those were the players that were consistently chased, and the top players often define the whole region.
Yeah.
We were lucky, right? We had the G2, we had the Perks and the Mythi. Like these guys improved the region so much.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for like in Korea. They just had like such a lineage of insane players. Faker came at the perfect time, right? Like his first game.
And
playing
people
mid-lane
mention
to
Faker,
Ambition, right?
but there's so many talented players in Korea. Like
insanely much, right?
Yeah.
But already, being in Korea, practicing against Faker, playing against Faker, trying to think of how to beat Faker, already being in that state of mind helps so much.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
So I think like key players really are important for regions. Definitely.
I wonder if they've got that now with players like Alfari. Core's been obviously very good for a long time. I wonder how that's had an impact on the region. But like I know that like it's funny because when Alfari was here in Europe, I know a lot of top laners actually didn't rate him that highly. Um, obviously, they all rated him in terms of his laning mechanics, but a lot of them sit there and said, like, yeah, but that's all he's got. That's all he is. He's just a laner. Once you get out of the lane, I know I'm going to be better than him, right? And I just always thought that was fascinating because Europe, that's kind of my expectation when it comes to European pros. You sit there and you ask a pro, like, what do you think of this player? And they go like, yeah, they're good, but like, they could be better.
I would, you know, bring back the analogy of mid laners from before, right? I remember back in, like, I'm not going to speak to recent times because I don't know, you know, the situation was weird in Team Liquid and so forth. I don't want to speak on his level right now. Sure. But I remember back before that when we prepared against him, I knew that eventually the teams that he was on would eventually reach a point where he would just group and he would just never show up on sideline again, and we would use that to our advantage. And the context was always Alfari is good at laning, but he's not good at winning games.
Yeah,
very good at laning, right? And it's the same. There's always that transition, you know, like when players become good at winning games. And winning, like being a great player, is when everyone on the map feels that you are there, your teammates and the enemies, not just the person that you lane against. Alfari made the person that he lanes against feel his presence, but not the rest of the map. If we think about the recent years, right, Wunder and Whippo have been like the staple top laners of Europe, and they knew how to fucking win games in very, very strange fashions very often. Fucking Whippo gets level 6, just walks down bot and fucking starts laning there, kills the guy, walks mid, goes top, gives up 3 waves, doesn't matter, solo kills the guy after, picks some weird shit, you know?
Even Adam's a little like that.
Yeah, Adam is a fucking wild card. It is, you know, like that's like that's just where we're at with League of Legends. I feel, you know, it's like it's such a connected game, and it's about making sure that you're connected to what you do. Like it's gotten to the point if I'm playing a game minute 2, my bot lane is pushing, that matters to me as a top laner. Everything matters. Every piece of information matters. And in the games where it's obvious that it matters, when you play against Mad Lions, it's very obvious that it matters. Yeah. Against Rogue, I remember the first game we played in regular split in summer. We beat them. We picked Kartus against them. It was like, what the fuck, Kartus? But the whole idea was we picked Kartus, and you know, as long as we don't make the first move, nothing is gonna really happen. As long as we are, you know, even if the waves are being stacked, Rogue is not going to be the team that is going to send multiple people there to, you know, cause chaos or put ourselves in positions where we would have to think about multiple things that they could potentially do. They were just actively laning, staying in lane, and, you know, doing that fine. But when you put them in a situation where that is not enough, then they would struggle. And when you played against Mad Lions, I remember there was this game where we had Olaf top, the wave was stacking, we based at the wrong time, they dove us, and the game was over. Because of that one stacked wave, and everyone on Mad Lions recognized it, and we didn't reply appropriately. And this is what we're going to see at the World Championship. This is what the top end teams do. This is what the LPL teams do. They see it. Like LPL, they play fucking smart. There's no longer this barbarian, you know, meme, whatever. It's like,
I agree with you.
They see jungle camps. They see, you know, it could be as simple as, I remember RNG played this game. They had like this mid lane Renekton. They got a kill. They level 3 ganked. And then bot lane could stay, but they just based, hard shoved the wave base just to be on the same timer as everybody else. So then you just walked 4 mid on the bounce, they killed the guy again, the game was over. And they could lane and play for maybe 6 CS advantage, 12 CS advantage, you know, gain something because they had push or bottom, but they just shoved in the wave, the enemy caught. The enemy bot lane was very happy. It's like, oh, I get relief, they are basing, what's happening? I'm very happy. And then their mid laner got ass blasted because that would be the play that matters more in the end. For sure.
Yep.
It's exciting times.
Yeah.
I love League of Legends because of this reason. Just that it's not
I mean,
figured
it's
out yet.
scary for Europe. That reminds me, because you were talking about how you got to scrim teams in the past, you'd lose, and then you'd like pick things up from them. And Cage and I were talking, and we were like, we reckon Fnatic have been scrimming G2 throughout playoffs. The reason why we said that was because there was a play that G2 did. And I don't know if you must remember it because I think it was against you. But G2 did this flawless Botlane dive, right? But you stack 3 waves and then you dive, ideally when the enemy bot lane is level 1, just before they hit level 2.
And
they,
like
they
4
did
jungle
this
camp, Raptor into dive bot,
Yeah, and
If
it
it's
was
leash.
it was absolutely flawless the way that they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying that I think that game 1 against you was the cleanest game like of League we've seen in Europe all split. It was crazy how clean overall the play was from G2. But that dive in particular, and then it was either you or it was Mad Lions that did that exact same dive later on. And I can't remember if it was you or if it was Mad Lions that did it. But Cage and I were thinking like that dive that they just did, we've seen that exact same thing from a completely other team. And then, funnily enough, I saw that exact same dive again when I was watching RNG versus WE in the Gauntlet run.
Yes,
and RNG did the exact same thing. And I'm like, well, okay, what probably happened was one of two things. One of these teams learned it from an LPL team, or this has just become a meta thing now that a lot of teams try to do where they stack up this third wave. And I know that RNG in particular with Xiaohu when he plays Lucian, because when he's on a ranged matchup, he can slow push top lane. That allows him to also TP to bot because he can stack waves up himself top lane, and then they can like do a 4-man, 5-man dive bot lane, and then he can actually get back to top before his wave is in any danger. Which is like one of the scary things about RNG when they get those ranged top laners like Lucian, for example.
No, like this play in particular is something that like has been a thing for so long, right?
Oh,
like,
really?
Like the dive, like this has been a thing. Like basically, you stack 3 waves into either you cheater or you look to dive because you are creating as big of a wave as possible. You have wave advantage, and that's why, you know, in the conversation of draft, I think often this is forgotten, right? Like how powerful champions are actually in lane, because it fucking matters, you know. Like sometimes if you get a wave stacked on you and you are threatening dive and the enemy can't get that fucking wave, the game can just be over. And it doesn't matter how broken you are at 15 or 20 minutes, the game can just be lost. All right, so power really matters. And that dive, like, even if you, I remember us playing against RNG in 2018. This was also like one of the like a play that we tried to do, but we just got completely outplayed and it didn't work, and fucking Jack Troll died, and
Didn't you still win that game though?
We did win that game, yes, because Draven got to cash out on Let Me on top. He had like 400 Draven stacks, and then we just had a 2k gold advantage from fucking Ornn dying in a lane swap situation. There's this particular play, right? Like the timing of when the jungler needs to be there definitely has changed due to jungle changes. But stacking 3 waves into diving, that has been relevant for so long. Like Vitality, right? When we were playing Ryze and Jace, we were diving on the exact same timer every fucking game. Because Ryze, what we figured out very fast was that we could guarantee Prio on that cannon wave, and we could push and we can find the play, right? And that's relevant today. That's like why Ryze is so good in pro play, because he can find that timer, and when you have waves that are stacking, you can be there to dive. And then you are forcing the enemy to either die, lose a lot if they play ideally. Like it's always going to be net positive, because either the mid laner TPs to defend and he's in Zimbabwe, you have TP advantage, you step back into mid for free, or the guy top lane loses wave and his jungler is there, and then you all of a sudden have a double crab, right? I'd say you're pathing into bottom side, you're threatening dive, and then enemy jungler is also pathing into there. It means that with that wave, you get a crab, you get a double crab, and all of a sudden you have Prio on the other side of the map too, because the jungle had to take such a long path to end up on bot, and he can even be threatened on his camps, right? So, so this particular window, like the first clear, I think this is something that's been relevant to League for so long. I think if we
the classic chess pinch, you know, where you're threatening two pieces at once, and you're like you're gonna lose something somewhere, right?
Yes. That's why like early game Prio is so fucking important. Like this was the whole idea of vitality, right? I think we won a lot because we figured this out first. Not necessarily that we had like really insane players, but we won a lot of games in regular split because we did this very early on, right?
Yeah, you were called a very aggressive team, and often the criticism for Vitality back then was if you didn't get a lead early, you didn't win games.
I just knew that we needed to be different to win. We needed to be very different to win. If we were similar to everyone else, we wouldn't win. Because I'd rather, like the philosophy was, we'd rather be pointing a gun at the enemy that has one bullet than to hope that the enemy like stabs himself in the eye with a knife or something, you know? It's just, if we miss that bullet, sucks, you know? But we want to have that chance. So we drafted into those situations, and I remember many games, you know, people thought that we were brain dead, but some of the games that we played and won were some of the best games ever because it required a lot of fucking precision. But when it didn't work, it looked really ugly. But that's the edge that we realized that we needed to play on to like pose a threat to anybody. Because the same Fnatic was so fucking insane that year, but the only team, I remember Reckless always said, the only team he feels fucking awkward to play against was us. And that was all we wanted to achieve. We wanted to be fucking awkward to play against.
Yep.
If someone is scrimming other teams, it's bad preparation for us. And that's what made Vitality this year in playoffs so fucking weird to play against. Still, I think the hardest best of 5 we played, besides the Mad Lions one, was the Vitality one. Because they were so fucking close. They played really fucking good, and they made it pretty fucking hard. Fucking Oscar really played well. Really well. And
LeBron had a pretty good series too, right?
Yeah. It's like if we, like us scrimming the other teams, how fucking useless was that in preparation for Vitality? Yeah. It's like fucking...
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. Oh, but,
we talk about so many different things. What was our point, Yamato?
You brought up G2 and that play that they did. You know, I could notice, you know, G2 took a lot of like inspiration in terms of like how they moved together and how they counted camps. It's like, oh, we want to invade the Raptors, put down the wards, make our jungle and support times as significant as possible. I noticed that a lot, but they couldn't figure out how to transition that into more. Because,
no, I agree with you.
Because, like, most of the time when we played G2, like, Upset and Hilly would just fucking outplay them so hard in terms of getting into their head.
Right.
Like the enemy would pressure with 4 into bot, but it just wouldn't matter because the windows that Hilly and Upset found when they're getting pressured by 4 were just so fucking brilliant. Like, I remember that game we played against Pantheon Jin bot, which is a fucking hard lane, and then there was a Nocturne mid with full Prio against Silas, and then there's a Rumble invading our Xin Zhao. So we had no fucking point of entry on both sides. But they just never died, and they farmed better and did better. And that's just, you know, the brilliancy of the bot lane that I've been blessed with.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Wait, they did get 2v2 killed by Rogue's bot lane though, didn't they?
But if you look at that lane matchup, if you are even CS die once, you know, you need to get more. If you're playing some of the matchups that Rogue was playing, you need to get a lot more. Like Hilly dying level 1 because she gets hit by a Q. I don't think...
Was it Rakan Ez that you were playing? Is that what you were playing?
Yeah, we were playing like fucking... let me pull it up. I don't remember specifically.
I don't remember either. I haven't watched
We were fucking picking Rakan. We were spitting on them, right?
You were picking Rakan, yes. Actually, that became a trend. It was funny in the draft because we were just like, Xayah, only Fnatic are playing it. It's mainly because they love for Rakan. Are they going to pick the Xayah? And then like it becomes a really important pick in the series versus Vitality, and then you never touch it again, and then it randomly comes back again, and we're like, I don't know what Fnatic's doing. Their draft priority shifts literally every game.
Just we were playing versus very different teams. And
I mean, it's true. That is true.
I was very proud with the work me and Shaves did in terms of the preparation.
Yeah, you were hard to predict, except Nisqy. Nisqy, I could always predict.
Well, when mid laners are OP, what can you do? You know.
He picked 3 mid laners and Cassio. I was like, well, I'm pretty confident I know which one he's going for.
So I pulled it up, right? We played Ezreal Rakan versus Aphelios Morg first game.
Yeah,
Second
unplayable.
game, we played Rakan Kaiser versus Ashe Lulu. Really fucking hard.
Unplayable. Yeah.
Next game, they played Thresh Jinx against Aphelios Braum, and that game, I think enemy bot lane got so fisted in a matchup. Like Aphelios Braum, I think we completely like annihilated them bots, if I remember
I think
correctly.
you did. I
That
can't
game.
remember them.
And that was like the one game where we had like a remotely feasible matchup. So when I read Rogue bot lane better than our bot lane, I just giggle to myself. I think it's a big fucking joke.
Oh, you do?
But it's oh, Rakan died level 1. Rogue is so fucking good. Woo! You know, I understand why people think.
I mean, I'm happy to tell you that my opinion is that I think Hansama is the best AD carry in Europe.
Okay.
In my opinion.
That's completely fine.
And it's and obviously
I'm biased as fuck, obviously.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
I love my boys, you know, and I see so much more than anyone else in regards to my players specifically. So I have there's no way I'm not biased. There's no way.
Of course. But I think it's really interesting, right? Because I think that often this was a perspective that I heard about Rogue on when Kelsey was watching some VODs. She was talking a little bit about how like she was talking with Veteran about was inspired overhyped. And I don't think that she was like trying to accuse him of being overhyped, but it was more just like an interesting thought thing where when you kind of look at Rogue, if their tendency was to always draft winning lanes, as someone now that has learnt a lot more about jungle, having like played it a lot more, you come to realize how much easier the game is to play when you just have winning lanes, right? And of course, Rogue's game plan a lot of the time was get as many winning lanes as possible and then play for Inspired. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Inspired, right? I think he did have a great split overall, and I think that he's a great player. But I thought it was a really interesting like thought experiment, just in terms of like sometimes I think it's easy to look at players and see them as actually performing potentially better than they are, partly due to like matchups and the champion pools. Something that I've spoken with Cadril about is he thinks that Kana as a player often likes to try and get winning matchups. Okay, well, if a player like Kana, who's individually very skilled, always gets winning matchups, then it makes sense that he's going to look good in lane a lot of the time because he's often going to get winning matchups. I'm not trying to sit here and say that Kana only looks good because he only gets winning matchups, right? That's not the point that I'm trying to make at. I think that sometimes players can look a little stronger or sometimes a lot stronger than they actually are because of certain dynamics and certain champions and certain pools that they have. I know that like Vito was considered by many fans one of the best mid laners in the league. And I think that like while he definitely had his high highs on certain champions in certain matchups, I think in other matchups he didn't even come close to that same level that he showcased, right? And I think that what really defines a good player is regardless of the matchup, your ability to be consistent. And I imagine that's something that you have a lot of respect for a player like Upset for, because you feel that you can put him on any matchup and you feel that he's never going to get like destroyed in lane, right? You're always going to have that confidence on him regardless of what he plays.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like concept is really interesting to think about when looking at players and how the team drafts around them and how they enable players, because I think that is a part of why Hansama does look so good, because the type of champions that he plays, like in my opinion, you don't have to comment on this, but in my opinion, Lucian is becoming more meta. And I think that if Lucian becomes a mainstay in bot lane, like that's a bread and butter Hansama champion, you know what I mean? And like, of course, it's a hilly Upset type of champion too. They'll dive you at level 2, level 3 with that champion as well. But these type of players put on those type of champions are always going to look really strong in lane, because that's also just the nature of those champions, right?
No. I agree with this sentiment. It's like you can only judge a player for what they are doing with what they're given, right?
Yeah.
And like sometimes you can see great players on bad teams. Sometimes like they just stand out, and you're like, wow, this guy is good, right? Sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's less so. And You know, sometimes certain players can be in situations where they feel like they need to overcompensate, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Jizuke was a good example back last year when people just, oh, he's fucking just inting. But sometimes a player's in a state of mind is like, I need to achieve the unachievable in order for us to win, so I'm going to pursue it.
Yes.
Because the
And
state
that's
of
a
mind,
really hard thing. Yeah, it's
the state of mind you're in the context of your dynamic, is so important, and that's something that we will never ever find out unless you're inside of the dynamic. You know, a player can play a certain way, act a certain way, think a certain way due to, you know, the the team that you're in, and that's why I think longevity is always so fucking impressive, right?
Yeah.
Longevity is so impressive, and Inspired. He played really fucking good with the opportunity that he was given, right, through his lanes.
Exactly.
And that's the only thing we can judge him by, right?
Yeah.
And that's it, right? He was given an opportunity, made the most out of it, because his judgment for what he can take and not take and how to get ahead in jungle has been very crisp. And that's why, like, in the context of people talk about Jankos, like this guy has been through it all. And then when G2 was trying to, like, back by last year when they were trying to do like farming jungle, right? They tried to catch up to what Suning did and what Damwon did. Like what Damwon and Suning did for a very long time, they already played that way. And then the meta shifted, but they just figured out the way they wanted to play better than everybody else, so people had to catch up. They were faced with a problem. The problem was Damwon. We need to beat them. How do we beat them? We try doing what they're doing. But when people were complaining about Jankos playing farming junglers, that's still a team fucking effort. What are you given? And I remember so many times where G2 are the type of team that are playing very volatile in lane, and they are pulling Jankos, and Jankos finds angles and finds opportunities. But Jankos was the one that was receiving flack because he missed a spear or two, right? And they turn into a big meme, which is fun, right? It's cool. But it's always in the context of your team. What kind of opportunity are you given? And
great point.
And Jankos is a player that has a longevity, you know. That's why in the conversation, like, it's so strange. People are like, yeah, let's bring in rookies. We need fucking rookies. And I'm a guy that I brought a lot of fucking rookies to the scene, because I think there are some players within regions that have got enough chances, and they've shown that they can't beat the top players. But your hope is that your rookies turn into one of those top players that have a fucking long ass career, right? You like that there are certain veterans that just keep getting better year by year, and that's what you want rookies to become. You don't want to just get a rookie because he's a rookie and then he has a clean slate and you can like give yourself credit and a pat on the back like he's playing good and it's because of me. No, it's like you want the rookie to become one of those staple players. You don't want a rookie because there's a rookie and then just next year replace him. That's not what the purpose is. And then when you finally grab a hold of a player like fucking Hilly-san, you fucking hold on to him, you know, for their life.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk about the G2 thing real quickly. I remember doing VOD reviews with Crepo during that Worlds. And one of the things that we talked a lot about was, so Crepo was obviously a very big advocate of talking about bot lane. And he used to tell me a lot about, like, he used to get angry at Perks. Not like every game, obviously, but like there were certain situations where he'd be like, Perks is taking this trade, which is basically like, it's too aggressive. He loses too much HP, and now what he needs is his jungler to come and fix his wave. And it comes back to exactly what you were talking about, which is that, like, when now Jankos has to adjust his pathing to make sure that bot is covered so that they can clear the wave, and then they can reset or they can do something. And mid was no different. Caps would take trades, and he would try to all in, and he would make stuff happen, because like trading health as a resource is something that Caps has always been very good at, right? He's always very good at playing on the edge. But sometimes he takes a bad trade, and Jankos has to path to cover for his lane and make sure that he can get out to safety. And that is the exact opposite of how you play that style of playing for your jungler. You would never see SOFM or Canyon help their lanes. And it was funny, this was one of the big things. People meme it, but for anyone that remembers my finals cast, I talked about Ring the Barrel, right? And the whole point of Ring the Barrel was that Beryl was responsible for fixing waves. If the top wave was awkward, it wasn't Canyon that fixes it, it's Beryl. He goes. Oh,
Yeah.
mid wave needs to push out the wave so that Showmaker can reset. Well, Beryl, you need to go and fix that wave because Canyon is busy right now. And like that is why they had the optimal like jungle support setup because of how well and coordinated those two were and actually being able to enable their laners so that they don't lose out on a jungler, but also Canyon can just do his thing. And SOFM was very similar. People like Ender used to love SOFM because he called him like one of the most efficient junglers in the world. And that's because that's what he was. Jungle camps to him were more important than his laners,
Yes,
which
yes.
meant the laners had to understand how to play with respect. And you have to understand when you can push, when you move for the jungle. Like this was the dominant meta at Worlds in 2020. And I think you're completely right in that G2, even if like let's say they go on the other side of the bracket and let's just say they beat Suning, I don't think they ever beat Damwon because that style was something that I don't think they could ever really fully adopt because the laners just didn't know how to play in a way that enabled their jungle. So and I think a part of the reason why Damwon now struggle this year at the beginning struggled anyway was because the meta flipped again, right? Like it wasn't actually all about trying to enable your jungle, it was actually more about like playing for your lanes a little bit more. And you could probably put some of their struggles down to having to once again shift to a different style. But the team looks much better now, having figured out a way that works for them. So I really liked your Jankos example because I thought it was a really good one, and I think that he is a player, especially this split, has looked extremely strong, right? And I think that during the regular season, he was a large part of why G2 finished where they did.
No,
So
Jankos is fantastic. I think all of the G2 players individually are fantastic, for sure. They have
and then the other thing
great potential.
the other thing you talked about was finding that player to build a roster around. I think that like it took teams a while to figure it out, but there are so many great examples of really great teams that have like in particular built around great mid laners, right? Like Faker was found at a very young age, and he's been on T1 his entire career. Perks was found. He was put on G2. He replaced Carlos, and then they kept him for as long as possible until Caps was found. And these young rookies that, I mean, Perks kind of dominated the moment he came onto the scene, so he's a bit more of the rare one. But the EU mids meme is a situation where we've had a lot of EU mids that like rosters have been built around. Because like they have that talent that you can then build and develop on over the years. And I think that when you kind of look at Europe right now, you kind of look at players like Vito, we were looking at Abadage. These were kind of like two mid laners that you were looking at that in a couple more years, you kind of be expecting them to actually fight for those top mid lane positions if they were allowed to like keep growing, keep having teams like grow and like new pieces get added in to elevate the roster. And like you're kind of now looking at that in the form of a humanoid, right? And even Larson has risen to prominence and he's kind of going through that mid lane transition that you were talking about earlier, you know, which is okay, you're a good laner, but how do you then transition that to being a great map player almost, you know? It's great that you can win your lane, but how do you win the game? And I think that that formula of finding that player is really, really important. But then you have to invest in them. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that was the failure of so many Western teams in the past. Like, you didn't get immediate success, replace, let's get this other player in. Oh, that's not working, replace, get this player in. And I think in the past we saw a lot of churning of players, whereas now we're seeing that actual investment over a long period of time in the hopes that these players can actually grow into something more significant.
Oh,
I think
for sure.
Nisqy is another good example, actually. Wasn't he picked up? When did he start? Was it Splice?
So his first team, like significant team, was Fnatic Academy. He joined, I believe, 2017, the same year Caps joined Fnatic, and he was a sub. And then I believe he went over to. When did he go to North America?
Wasn't that 2018?
I'm just trying to remember. Was he ever in Envy?
I'm gonna bring up his.
Well, he beat me in Splice 2018. I'm trying to remember if he was at what point he was in Envy. Was it 2016 he was in Envy, and then he joined.
Okay, here you go. January 2015. Punchline Esports, Infamous Esports.
When was he in Envy? That's the only part I'm missing.
Envy was May 2017 to November 2017.
Oh, okay. So 2018 he went to Splice, and that's when he Cassiopea'd my ass, and And then 2019 was
Yeah, you're
his
right.
Cloud9
So
journey, and he got clapped at Worlds by Griffin.
Fnatic
And
Academy, he was November 2016 to May 2017.
and then he went to Envy. Okay.
And then he went to Envy for one split. And then he came back to Europe for a year where he played for Splice. And then after that, he was in Cloud9 for 2 years, it looks like.
Yeah.
November 2018 to
Blabber
November
and Svenskeren.
2020. Blabber and Svenskeren. And then he rejoined you on Fnatic. I mean, like, I guess I can kind of see why the perception of him is one that it's like, oh, well, he's never, like, won anything. But I also think that, like...
He won LCS.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, right? But I think that imagine if he just stayed on Fnatic Academy and then he moved up to the Fnatic roster when Caps left it in, what, 2019?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, how different his trajectory could have been. Well, I mean, he wouldn't have won an A. It would have been a different trajectory. But, like, maybe people would have had more faith in him from the offset rather than having to, like, build that faith in him now, you know?
I'm at a point in my life where I never underestimate the importance of any experience we have in our journey to where we are currently. Because maybe something, if we experience something maybe slightly different, maybe that would just, you know, imagine you're on a boat, right? And let's say you shift 1 degree to the left. The path your boat is taking is gonna eventually be so fucking different from what the original trajectory was be, and it's weird. Like I've been in many situations that were like very hard at the time, like this Mad Lions loss, but I know that at some point whatever pain we're experiencing will be useful to us. And it's like now Nisqy is where he's at, and I look back at his path, and maybe something could have been entirely different. You know, maybe in some weird world, maybe you are the faker of League of Legends Vedius. Maybe if somehow we did something different back then at some point in our life, maybe it's weird how everything is, like every small moment that we have has some level of importance to where we are today. So who knows what Nisqy would have been if he stayed on the academy.
Bro, the moment you mentioned that, I was like, when I was really trying to be pro back in like season 3, 4, 5, I was just too stubborn. I wish, and I'm so angry at myself, I just wish that I had reached out to a coach or someone that could have taught me macro back then.
You did that in Blade and Soul, man. You had your master.
Yeah, I had a coach.
Eventually beat.
Yeah, I beat him on stage. That's my point. If I had just had a coach in League of Legends, because I was just hands, right? I could, like, mechanically, I was really, really, really good, but that was it. I had no brain. Also back then, I never really understood the politics game. Back then, it was all about who you know, right? And like, if you pissed off certain players, you'd never get onto a team. And I also wish I understood this back then. But I'm not unhappy about my career trajectory, and I also know that I wouldn't have been a pro player for very long, that's for certain. So it's not like I hate the path that I took.
But even that pain is useful to you, right?
Yeah, for sure. It gives me a lot of motivation, and it's helped me learn since then, because as a result of that, when I look back, I mean, so for example, I now have singing lessons. I never would have taken singing lessons if I never believed that the best way for me to learn is for me to be taught. Because now I believe that if there's a new skill that I want, I just hire a teacher, because I believe that is the most efficient and the best way for me to learn. And that's why, like, I plan on after Worlds hiring a German tutor, because I'm like, it's probably going to be the most efficient way that I learn German if I just have someone sit down and teach me German. So like, there's a really prime example for you. So I just realized, I'm like, I noticed there's a blue thing in my background, and I was like, what is it? And then I realized that the t-shirt. This, everyone, is a t-shirt that Yamato got me. It's way too big for me, but I often wear it on lazy days. Nice. I can't remember the context of this t-shirt, but it is a gift from Yamato.
So basically,
it's so good, right? It's so good.
you were living with Deficio, and he did something to break your favorite shirt. There was like a hole in it, some shit. And you're like, fuck, man, this is my favorite shirt. And then that day, I bought you a shirt. And then I just forgot it for like 3 years. Like, that shirt was just there. And I was like, shit, what is this? This is a gift for Vedius. And then I just brought it in one day. It's like, yo, you need this shirt. They're like, what?
Yeah, that's true. Holy shit. All of that story is completely 100% true. There was a period in time where Deficio was living on my sofa.
And he was eating t-shirts. Fuck's
Yeah,
sake.
he destroyed one of my t-shirts. And then Yamato, I think you were part of the broadcast team at the time, even. Because that was...
I think it was even earlier than that. Like, this was like some...
Maybe it was, because that was 2018, mate, when he was... Oh, maybe it was earlier than that. Was 2017, actually. 2017, 2018.
That was a long time ago, man. It took me time to get that t-shirt.
Yeah, I got that t-shirt. I'm pretty sure I got that when I picked up the graphics card. I came home with the graphics card and that. And that...
So I just had that shirt for like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Moly.
Oh my god, yeah. We have a lot of history, Yamato. I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, me too. It's been a lot of good times. It's So I wanted to have you on here. It just made
before you get into the grind.
Yeah.
So how long have we been chatting now? Because how long has it been?
It's like 1 hour and 40 minutes. Time fucking flies, dude. It's
how
crazy.
long do you normally make these episodes, my friend?
Whatever makes sense. I guess we can start talking about the World Championship. What's your initial reaction on the draw? What are you feeling?
I think Europe did pretty well. I was praying Rogue got Group B. Because then I'm like, they can get out of that. If it's Team Liquid and then it's Rogue, they can get out, and then that's 3 European teams out, doable. And then they got Group A, and then I was like, well, they tried. But I think that I'll tell you, I think RNG, in my opinion, is actually one of the favorites to win the tournament. So I think that you're going to struggle against RNG, but I do think that PSG is beatable. The other team that would join your group would be Hanwha, and I think that's a game where you should just put Adam on Darius and you should just see what happens. That's my opinion. So I think that Hanwha is very beatable.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people, I understand why people rate LNG highly, and I think that it is fair to give that benefit to LNG.
Yeah.
But Hanwha, the 4th seed from Korea, I have very little faith in. From what I have seen, and bear in mind, it is a limited amount because I just watched their best of 5 versus T1.
Yeah.
One of those games was just kind of like Chovy making a lot of really insane plays and like catching T1 off guard. But I also think a lot of that was T1 just not knowing how to play the mid game.
Yeah.
And I think that T1 have a number of issues that make them a good team, but people aren't going to like this, and it's going to require so much context, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to get clipped out. They kind of remind me of Rogue. Obviously, like the way in which they approach the game is quite different. And I'm not trying to say that T1 and Rogue are basically the same teams. It's just that, like, when I watch T1, if they get an early lead, they know exactly how to play the game, and they seem to be like a really clean team, and they are able to execute. If, however, they like get into the mid game and the game is kind of even, sometimes they can look quite lost on the map, and they don't really know what to do, and they don't have a clear direction, and sometimes they try to overforce fights. Sometimes they try to like play on side lanes, and they end up getting caught out. And like that's kind of why they remind me of Rogue, in that like if they have a really good draft where they can really enable their laners and they can leverage the individual talent and they can kind of get ahead and then play their game, then I think that they look good. But when you kind of put them in that like even state, and when they have to be like clever about finding their own advantages outside of lane, that's when I think that they can fall apart. So yeah, and I rate them higher than I do Hanwha. So I don't think that Hanwha was actually getting like really impressive wins. I think that T1 was making more mistakes, and like Hanwha were just kind of catching the throws. So I think that you should be able to get out of groups. I think Mad should be able to get out of groups, and then I think Rogue is doomed.
Yeah, I think that's the general sentiment. I would agree. Like on the T1 and Rogue point, I think that their losses look similar. Like
yes,
for sure. I think that there's definitely that element to it. Like how they win might be slightly different, but the nuance of how they lose definitely looks similar. I feel like League is at the point where jungle, support, and mid, how they think about the game and what they do within the game is so important. It's like
Yes.
It just defines everything that's going on. Like every decision that's being made in the game needs to be driven by these three rules.
Yep.
Like, if you're ganking somewhere, pressuring for somewhere, these three rules need to be connected and involved. And I think those roles are the most impactful, the most powerful. And coming into the World Championship, this is just how it is. And I think when it comes to T1, how connected that unit is, that's usually like what defines like a level of a team. Like Mad Lions do it very well, right? Humanoid and Kaiser, they are very, very connected as a unit in terms of how they play with the jungle. They are there on the stacked waves. They're good at playing around fog. They're basing together. You know, it's like the engine of the team. I believe, like in the top 20 list that Peter Dunn and Dominate did. Like he mentioned the word engine or catalyst or something. But this is just the unit of the team that makes and drives all the decisions within the game, and that always defines like the macro level of a team and how precise someone is. That's why Mad Lions is exciting for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I really can't wait for them to play against some of the better teams. And historically, T1 have a very good record in groups. So if you were a betting man, your actual safest bets are to put Korea to get out of groups. Mm-hmm. Even in their bad year, the one that you knocked Genji out of Worlds.
Yeah, that was the first time ever.
Yeah, so that was the first time ever.
Korean team.
And that's actually the only time ever. Outside of that one time, Korea has always gotten out of groups. So it would be dangerous to say that Genji and T1 wouldn't get out of groups. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I don't know what it is. But Korean teams in best of ones, you wouldn't expect them to have that level of consistency, but they have that level of consistency. And it might be, maybe you can comment on this. I don't know if teams in best of ones and groups like play more reserved, you know, than perhaps you kind of want them to, because obviously each game has so much more weight than say a best of five. But perhaps if the game is just slowed down and everyone's just a little bit more reserved and everyone takes their time a lot, maybe that's just an environment that Korea has always really thrived in, right? So maybe that could be one reason, or maybe they've just always had very good players, right? That's the other aspect to it.
I would say, I think the way Korean teams practice is very good for best of ones. I think also Korean teams generally have very strong conviction in what they want to play and what they want to draft, because a lot of the Korean teams are very like coach driven, and when you are practicing a certain way where you just cookie cutter repeating the same recipe over and over again, then you've nailed it, you know. And usually if that decision is right, they plow through the entire tournament. Like if you look at how Damwon played through the entire World Championship, they drafted very similarly. It's like top lane was their wild card, barrel on something that could just go in, that is beefy, and then often they had the Grave, Syndra, Jhin, something that they can kite, peel back, and play a certain way. Like there was a clear recipe in how they wanted to play. Same thing when T1 was winning World Championship. I remember first pick the strongest fucking jungler that you can, blind pick Rise, play through mid, and that was like the recipe, you know. They figured out the recipe from day one, they stuck to it. And I think usually when metas are undefined, it's better to be just good at what you know. And I think this is something the Korean teams are very, very good. They stick to their guns, they have conviction in what they do, but as the tournament progresses, when there are shifts and there are things that you need to, that you need to move around on, and if what you have a strong conviction in turns out to be maybe wrong, that's when those teams begin to tip, right?
I see. So that then also when all these teams have so much time leading into a tournament to practice, they can only just further solidify their approach to the game, right? So then you come into the best of ones and they just have a very clear and crystal idea of how they want to approach the game. It's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yes. But this is like the issue that every team is facing. we are facing this issue. Like, you go into a tournament, there's metas from all over the place, and you need to have like conviction in what you're doing and what you believe in. But
I mean, Fnatic's famous for that, my friend. The week 1, week 2, a week 1 Fnatic, week 2 has always looked dramatically different from week 1. In fact, the organization's history is you come in with the wrong meta read, you lock in Garen Yumi 3 games in a row, and then you realize maybe this wasn't the play, and then you shift it up and you knock RNG out of groups. So, you know, it's it's funny because, like, if Yamato, if you crack the formula and you make week 1 Fnatic as good as week 2 Fnatic, we're looking at another 2018 Fnatic all over again, aren't we?
That's the hope. I'm really excited. I feel so fucking pumped. I feel so energized. The boys are excited too, and I feel more ready than ever, man. Like, this is it. Like, we go into the tournament wanting to win it all. I think setting any type of other goal is a joke. I think that's just a competitive joke. If you like, we want to go to quarters. Like, fuck that shit. You know, we're going to practice as if we want to fucking win it all. We're not going to practice as if we want to go to quarters. We're going to practice as if we want to win it all. Same approach that we did in summer split or spring split. You have to practice and live in a way as if you want to fucking win everything. I think there's nothing else that you can do, and that's our goal. I'm so fucking hyped for our group. Okay. I've been to Worlds 3 times, Vedius. Every time I have RNG in my group, and every
First time
I haven't
they knocked
gone,
you out.
Yes.
Second time they didn't really knock you out, did they?
Well, both. I am 1-1. Like, with Splice, we won against RNG once.
Yeah.
We won against Uzimata, Mickey and Kobe. What's up? Jin Brom. And then 2018, we won that game, Draven Trash into Kaiser. Yep. Good times. Wow. And then this time, I'm gonna increase the win ratio. Is gonna go above 50%.
Ming versus upset Hylissang. Isn't it crazy how, like, it's obviously you didn't have Hylissang, but Hylissang Ming, this matchup is actually, there's so much history between these two players. Mm-hmm. There's actually so much history. Has Hilly said anything?
Nah, man, Hilly is chilling, man. Hilly is chilling.
But is he excited to play against Ming again or anything? Has he said anything like that? Or
Hilly just wants to win, man. This guy is, I don't know, man. This Hilly is so fucking good, man. He's so fucking smart and good. It's insane, actually. It's crazy.
You know, it was him that knocked RNG out in 2019.
Yeah.
It was the T1 Fnatic RNG group.
Can't believe.
Was that Pike?
Yeah,
or the split push? I remember him sitting top lane with the Baron.
Yes. I still can't believe fucking they were allowed to get the Barrel Bros. The fucking Gragas Gangplank was the secret recipe of Fnatic winning games. They got the Barrel Bros, and then they were banning supports, and fucking Hilly got to play Pike.
I don't know if you remember what game this was, but do you remember the Trundle game from Hilly, where he almost won the game by himself playing Trundle support?
Yes.
I don't even remember who he was playing against. I just remember that. I remember yelling about the fact that this Trundle's about to backdoor this team.
That's fucking good times. Holy moly.
Okay, that's cool. I'm excited. I hope to see more champions from Nisqy. So far, he's on 4, and his LeBlanc didn't look very good, so I'm going to exclude that from the roster of playoffs Yamato.
That was just one game. It was one game, man.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I've got to talk about what's in front of me.
Yes.
You know that, you know? And so, from my evaluations of that one game, his LeBlanc should never be played again. You know what I mean? That's... But you've got PSG, who obviously you can never afford to underestimate them, because I think teams did underestimate them at MSI and they ended up getting punished for it.
Yeah.
And of course, Maple is a very talented individual. So I think like your group's going to be really interesting, because I think it's one of those ones where, in theory, anyone could get out.
Yeah.
If Hanwha Life do qualify, then in theory anyone could. So for me, it's probably the most exciting group, because I feel like it's the one that's the least defined. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you finished top of the group, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you were struggling to get out as well, you know? So I think Group C is a really interesting one.
Oh, the best of ones are very dangerous. But in terms of, like, preparation approach, it's like I like to prepare for the best version of the enemy team, and I hope to face the best version of the enemy team, because I want to walk away like winning easy games. There's nothing like there's no, you know, like beating Rogue, like 3-0. Honestly, it didn't feel like much,
right?
Because our preparation, like the players, our mindset, you know, upset coined. We're on a mountain, you know. We were on a mountain, you know. We walked into that series knowing that we are gonna win, right?
Right.
And the G2 series, like that felt like a fucking finals, you know. Like that was a rough one, you know. And we conquered our demons, and we dominated in the game 5, and you know, those series are a lot more meaningful, of course.
Yeah, of course. I remember the screaming Yamato. I expect to see it again if you beat RNG.
Yeah. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Okay. Yeah. Vedius, you know, we've been talking for 2 hours, and my girlfriend's waiting for me, so I'm gonna spend some time with her. But is there anything that you want to plug, or anything that you want to, Vedius picks to watch coming out or something?
Vedius picks to watch is coming out soon.
Early. Do you finish it? Do you record it? It's wrapped.
We need to record the script, so like the things that I say about the champions. But the champions have been locked in. The intro has been recorded.
Okay.
Just got to all be stuck together and released. So picks to watch is definitely coming out.
Holy.
People are gonna link it. Yeah.
That's sick. Anything else?
No, just, you know, keep me updated on the DMs, how scrims are going. You know, I like all the one-on-one info. You know, I like it. But no, thank you, thank you, Yamato. I know you're going to be really busy from this point on. You know, I consider you a close friend, and I'm going to be supporting you. And I hope that you. I mean, ultimately, I want you to win, but I ultimately want you to perform your best. You know, because I think that as a competitor, that's what matters the most. If you lose to a better team, then as long as you played the absolute best that you could, I think that for me as a competitor, whenever I used to compete, I was always like, well, you know what? I know I lost, but this person was just better, and I did everything that I could, but they were just better than me, and that sucks. But you know, I'm actually okay with this loss, because there's no way, like for me, that I think so I need to work harder in the long term to be able to be better than them. So I hope that you just get the best possible thing out of your players, and I hope that you bring the best possible drafts. So can't wait. I'm excited.
I appreciate that, Vedius. No, you mean a lot to me, Vedius. I'm happy that
you to me as well, friend.
I'm happy that you could pull up even after a long work day to have a chat with me, because of course the timings are very limited when we both have a moment in time to.
I mean, after Worlds, we need to get that house party thing going on, you know?
Bro, I'm moving from this hellhole.
Don't care. We still got to do it. You know, we got to get the rock band out. You, me, Dracos, and someone else, and just a bunch of party games.
We have to do it. We have to do it. I have my guitar right here.
Nice.
Like I downloaded the clone here to play some music.
Nice.
To warm up the hands, you know?
Nice. I'm excited, bro. I suck at that type of game, but I'm ready to play it anyway.
No, for sure. We got to do it. I have so many issues with this apartment. Like, you know how much I'm paying. We don't need to
I know, bro. It's ridiculous.
It's a fuckery, right? And my heating is all fucked, and like everything is just a fucking disaster here. I fucking hate this place. I'm going to move out, and I'm suing them, and I'm leaving. Fuck this place.
Leaving. Fuck this place. That's all right, cool. All right, move a little closer, and then I can visit more often. That'd be great.
Yes. Hopefully. Like with new Fnatic.
Love you, Jacob. Have a great Worlds. Go kick some ass. And remember, Iceland is fucking cold. So I've been told that a dehumidifier is really fucking important for your skin. So moisturize, and a dehumidifier is apparently what you need. Okay? Don't get that dry skin when you're out in the cold. Understand?
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care of yourself.
All the best, Vedius, yeah? Wait, you guys are not flying to Iceland, right? You're staying in the EU?
No.
Shit, man. I'll see you when I'm back. for maybe when I move into the new
Hopefully,
place.
they might sit there. They might sit there and tell me they're like, "Yeah, we don't want you to cast the semis onwards. That'll be nice. I'm coming to Iceland. See you there, lads." I'm Jacob's assistant. Yeah, I get him coffee. That's me. Hi.
I'm
All right,
wearing
mate.
the
Take it
shirt
easy.
he gave me as proof.
Yeah. All right, mate. Take it easy.
Brother. Take care, man. See you. Bye bye.
Peace.
Okay, that was. Fucking Vedius give me tips about Iceland. He doesn't know I'm from Sweden. Ugh, I'm used to the cold indeed. You know, Viking is a way of life. It was good to have Vedius here. This was episode 14 of The Voice of Yamato. I appreciate all of you guys showing up. Let's just host somebody to end the day. Let's just check who's online because a lot of you guys showed up. Let's just host somebody. Let's.
Taylor Hall som favoritspelaren.
That's very loud. Sorry. Let's host raid. Is self-made streaming? But he has no mic, so it's not so fun. Let's just. I will dominate. I will dominate. Yeah. Dominate. Dominate is a homie. Oscar has no fucking mic.